One of the more controversial figures we have in the NBA media is Gilbert Arenas. As the majority of times Gilbert, he has decent takes that kind of go off the rails the more you listen to him. As his most recent take about Hakeem Olajuwon was definitely pretty absurd, as Gilbert alleged Hakeem was quote-unquote scamming players by having them pay $50,000 to train with him.
Ain't no way in today's hell you spend $50,000 on Hakeem Olajuwon training. LeBron James did it. You ain't seen a dream-shaped Martin Luther I need a dream move since he left this camp.
Now, the superstar who is training with Hakeem Olajuwon is Giannis. And if you guys know Gilbert, he was one of the biggest critics of Giannis, claiming he had no skills, no offensive game, no post moves, and quote, hadn't improved since his rookie season. So Giannis going to work with Hakeem Olajuwon, going to get better, learning from the best post-up player of all time. Why is Gilbert upset by that and Giannis paying $50K to learn from the dream? And Gilbert claims 1990s players have Hakeem Olajuwon's post moves. It's completely out of date, out of whack, and not useful in today's league. But if you look around the entire NBA, power forwards, centers, even some guards, the baseline of work for Hakeem's post moves, it's still present in 2023. Look at someone like Jokic. Of course, not the athlete Hakeem was, but in terms of post moves, post footwork, it's almost Hakeem-esque, but on 0.5 speed. And looking at someone like Embiid, much more the athlete, he is 10 times more clumsier, uncoordinated than Hakeem, but still shakes guys out of their shoes on a regular basis with Hakeem-esque moves. The overall foundation of Hakeem's footwork, like I said earlier, is present in almost every player's game. And even looking back to the 1950s, someone like a George Mikan, his drills today are still used at the youngest levels of basketball because those skills are fundamental to the game and to development. And that's why someone like Giannis going to Hakeem for help, for knowledge, I don't get how you can criticize that and say paying $50K is somehow Hakeem Olajuwon scamming that player. And if you look at Hakeem, the player in his prime, in my personal view, this guy, he's not just one of the most skilled big men of all time, but player, period. And in terms of individual talent, on the offensive end, defensive end, you could argue this guy was the best center of all time, playing the best era of big men. And if you look at actual post-move shots, which weren't tracked till 1997, a tad past Hakeem's prime, they're still highly impressive. On hook shots, he shot a remarkable 128 of 197. Mid-range shots, an underrated part of Hakeem's game, was 248 of 572, ranking first in makes for centers. And in the paint, 3 to 5 feet, ranked first in the NBA in scoring with 213 made field goals. 97 Hakeem was still a very effective player despite losing a step and being less mobile. Again, going to show you guys, even Hakeem slightly past his prime was a tier 1 post player, one of the best post-up guys of all time. And if you look at prime Hakeem, 1995, what he did to David Robinson, who was like a Giannis prototype, it should be studied for decades. As a post move this guy pulled off versus the MVP and elite defender was simply remarkable. And for the series, he averaged 35.3 points, 12.5 boards, 5.0 assists, and 4.2 blocks. If you see a guy like that abusing David Robinson, the Admiral, who's a specimen athletically, that price of admission to learn from him is definitely worth it. And looking at some of Hakeem's so-called proteges, he trained Yao Ming, Dwight Howard, even Kobe and LeBron, among others. And it really does speak volumes. Guys who were non-centers sought out this guy to learn from. And for someone like Kobe, he said Hakeem Olajuwon was a basketball genius. If Kobe says that about you, I'm going to take you seriously as an NBA trainer. And when Bryant worked with Hakeem in 2009, he already had elite post moves by really anyone's standards. But even Kobe says Hakeem Olajuwon elevated his game and his understanding of post moves and back to the basket play. And of course, looking at LeBron James, around 2011-2012, also went to Hakeem Olajuwon to perfect his fadeaway, as up till that point LeBron James, he was a decent jump shooter, decent post player, but not close to what he become after working with Hakeem Olajuwon. As looking at the actual raw numbers, on LeBron's fadeaway jump shots in the post, in 2010, shot 19 of 50, pretty good percentage, not much volume. 2011, 33 of 56, again, not much volume. But post Hakeem Olajuwon doubled his makes and attempts in a shortened lockout season. And again, that percentage still was elite for the time period and elite for any era. And looking at Kobe, before Hakeem versus after, the exact same story. Was still a very good player out of the post, great on fadeaways, but post Hakeem, up that volume with the percentage remaining steady. Now unfortunately, post-up stats back then weren't really that much in detail, but by looking at those numbers right there, it paints at least a little bit of a picture of how effective Hakeem was as an NBA trainer. And looking at the actual current Rockets team, one of their franchise cornerstones is Alfred Sengun. After his rookie year, he sought out Hakeem Olajuwon to learn from and gain knowledge. And much like LeBron and Kobe, when you look at the actual numbers with post-up play, there is a noticeable improvement from before Hakeem versus after. As in 2022, he ranked 22nd post-up scoring at 2.1 points, and then in 2023 went to 11th at 3.0 points on better shooting. Of course, a very small sample size, but looking at Sengun's actual quotes, talking about Hakeem Olajuwon, what he learned from them, it's undeniable the Dream has great knowledge and helped his guys in one degree or another. And looking back at Gilbert's claims about Hakeem Olajuwon, he went one step further saying the Dream didn't know anything about post moves past 1990.
He ain't been good since the 90s. That means all the moves in the 2000s, early 2000s, he don't know. 2010, he don't know. 2020, he don't know. He don't know. Who the fuck you gonna do the moves on? Wembayami? What you need a Dream shake for Wembayami? He weighed this much. He weighed this much.
Now look, this point by Gilbert right here, I think is one of his worst arguments. As again, Hakeem's post-up game, his footwork back to the basket game, his hook shots, fadeaways, that was established, yes, in the 90s. But that foundation is still used by guys today. Of course, are they Hakeem Olajuwon in skill, finesse? Of course not, that's impossible. But looking at someone like a Jokic, like an Embiid, those big guys who are light on their feet, the Hakeem Olajuwon influence is still present in today's NBA. And looking back at Giannis, for a guy who complains about him only being brute force, being a one-way player, downhill all the time, I don't get why his outrage at Giannis is seeking out Hakeem Olajuwon. And I have noticed Gilbert's overall personality, persona on YouTube. He's definitely pretty boisterous and outgoing. But his actual takes from month to month are highly inconsistent. As one month he'll tell Giannis he has no post move, no post game, and isn't skilled. But the next month, when Giannis is trying to get better, one of the best NBA players of all time, will slander him and Hakeem Olajuwon. Of course, he's half kidding in these videos, half not kidding, but his underlying premise is always present in most of his videos, as Gilbert is one of those guys who thinks 90s basketball was complete trash and irrelevant for today's players. If you guys know me, I 100% disagree and push back on that. So that right there is the end of the video. As always, thank you guys for watching, hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you next time.